The week before college, my parents told me, "We gave your tuition money to your brother. His business needs it more." Then they said I should be proud of supporting the family. I didn't argue. I just packed my bags and left. A year later, his business went bankrupt, and I was quietly making millions without a degree. Now they keep calling, but I don't answer. Imagine this. My 6-year-old son, Tyler, was beaming at his dinosaur-themed birthday party, surrounded by friends, pure joy lighting up his face. And then, my own sister, Jessica, unleashed a cruel video compilation of his deepest vulnerability, his stutter, turning that innocent celebration into a scene of public humiliation. That shattered look on his face, it will haunt me forever. But what she didn't know was that, just hours later, my 78-year-old grandma would whisper a chilling promise. Some lessons require drastic measures. And by morning, our entire family would be irrevocably, explosively changed. You know, I never thought my own family could destroy something as innocent as a child's birthday. But looking back, the signs were always there. The blatant favoritism, the constant, subtle put-downs, this relentless competition for approval. I just never imagined it would hurt my son. My name is Alec. I'm 32, and for the past 3 years, I've been doing my best to raise Tyler alone, ever since his mom, my incredible wife Sarah, was stolen from us by cancer. That grief, man, it nearly broke me. But Tyler, he was only 3 when she passed, too young to truly grasp why mommy wasn't coming home. He needed me to be strong. The trauma affected him deeply, and within months, he developed a stutter that no amount of gentle encouragement seemed to help. We live in my father's sprawling suburban home in Connecticut, along with my sister, Jessica, and my amazing grandmother, Ruth. Dad insisted we move in after Sarah died, claiming it would be better for Tyler to be surrounded by family. Some days, I'm genuinely grateful. Other days, I wonder if it was the right decision at all. My father, Harold, is 62 and made his fortune in real estate. He's always been obsessed with status and success, which, honestly, explains why Jessica is clearly his favorite. She's 36, a marketing executive, and she never lets anyone forget her 6-figure salary or her corner office with a view of the Manhattan skyline. Meanwhile, he barely acknowledges my career as a high school English teacher. Still grading papers for peanuts, little brother? Jessica would needle at dinner, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. And Dad, he'd chime right in. The boy could have joined my business, but he insists on throwing away his potential. It stung every single time. Grandma Ruth, though, she's the heart of our fractured family. At 78, she's sharp as a tack and sees straight through everyone's pretenses. She moved in after Grandpa Joe passed 5 years ago, and she's been Tyler's greatest ally since he lost his mom. "That boy doesn't need your criticism, Harold," she'd say whenever Dad made comments about Tyler's stutter. "He needs patience and love." And she was right. Tyler found so much comfort in dinosaurs after Sarah died. It started with a tiny T-Rex toy the hospital child psychologist gave him, and it just blossomed into a full-blown obsession. His room transformed into a prehistoric wonderland. Posters, books, figurines on every surface. When he talked about dinosaurs, his stutter almost disappeared, as if the sheer joy temporarily healed something broken inside him. So, when Tyler's 6th birthday approached, I knew exactly what theme would make it special. For 6 months, I scrimped and saved, setting aside a portion of my teacher's salary. I skipped lunches out, canceled streaming subscriptions, anything to afford the kind of celebration that might help Tyler forget his pain, just for one day. "Dad, can I have a real dinosaur expert at my party?" he asked one evening as I tucked him in, his blue eyes wide with hope. "You bet, buddy," I promised, my heart warming at his excited gasp. "Not just any expert. I found one who brings actual fossils kids can touch." The weeks leading up to the party were the happiest I'd seen Tyler since before Sarah got sick. He helped me hang green and brown streamers, arranged his dinosaur figures around the house, and practiced saying, "Welcome to my dinosaur party," in front of the mirror, trying to manage his stutter for his friends. Then, Jessica inserted herself. "This little dinosaur party is cute, Alec, but let me help take it up a notch," she said one evening, waltzing into the kitchen where Tyler and I were making invitations. "I have connections, you know. I can handle the entertainment and the cake." Before I could object, she turned to Tyler with this exaggerated enthusiasm. How would you like that, buddy? Aunt Jessica will make your party amazing. Tyler nodded shyly, and I felt utterly cornered. Refusing would disappoint him, but accepting meant surrendering control of the celebration I'd so carefully planned. That's really generous, Jess, but I've already booked the dinosaur expert and ordered the cake, I explained. Cancel them, she insisted, pulling out her credit card. My treat. Dad always says you need to learn to accept help, Alec. Speaking of Dad, he chose that moment to enter the kitchen, car keys jingling. Just got her detailed, he announced to no one in particular. That '67 Mustang is going to steal the show at the Classic Car Rally next weekend. Dad's restored Mustang was his absolute pride and joy, a gleaming red symbol of his success that he valued more than practically anything. He'd spent 2 years and nearly $60,000 restoring it to mint condition. Maybe you can give Tyler and his friends rides at the party? I suggested, trying to include him. He laughed. Not a chance. No sticky-fingered kindergartners in my baby. I saw Tyler's shoulders slump slightly. Another small rejection to add to the pile. The night before the party, Jessica called to say she'd taken care of everything. A vague uneasiness settled in my stomach, but I pushed it aside. Despite our differences, she wouldn't deliberately ruin her nephew's birthday, would she? That evening, I found Grandma Ruth sitting alone on the back porch, staring at the sunset. Everything okay? I asked, joining her. Some people only learn through consequences, Alec, she said cryptically. Sometimes love means having the courage to create those consequences. I didn't understand what she meant then. By the next day, I would. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather and a buzz of excitement. Tyler woke me at 6:30, already dressed in his dinosaur shirt, practically vibrating with anticipation. Is it time for my party yet, Dad? He asked, bouncing on the edge of my bed. Not for a few more hours, buddy. I laughed, pulling him in for a hug. But we can start setting up after breakfast. We transformed the backyard into a prehistoric paradise. Green and brown balloons swayed from tree branches. Dinosaur footprints made from construction paper created a path from the front door through the house and into the yard. A "Welcome to Tyler's Jurassic Park" banner stretched across the patio. Tyler carefully arranged plastic dinosaurs on each picnic table, making sure the herbivores and carnivores were properly separated. The T-Rex and the Triceratops are enemies, Dad. He explained seriously, his stutter minimal as he spoke about his favorite subject. By 11:30, everything was perfect. The dinosaur expert texted that he was on his way with his collection of fossils. The only thing missing was the cake, which Jessica had insisted on handling. Don't worry, I assured Tyler as he anxiously checked the time. Aunt Jessica will be here soon with your cake. The first guests arrived at noon, and soon the backyard was filled with the happy chaos of 6-year-olds playing dinosaur-themed games. Tyler was beaming, showing his friends how to dig for fossils in the sandbox I'd prepared. For once, he seemed just like any other excited birthday boy. His stutter barely noticeable as he explained dinosaur facts to his captivated audience. The dinosaur expert was a hit. He brought real fossils for the children to touch and guided them through making their own plaster fossil casts. Tyler was in heaven, hanging on the man's every word, asking thoughtful questions. Everything was going perfectly. Then Jessica finally arrived, an hour late. Sorry. Traffic was insane, she announced, sweeping into the backyard with her videographer friend Mark trailing behind her. But the cake is here. My heart sank when I saw the plain white sheet cake in her hands. No dinosaurs, no decorations, just "Happy Birthday, Tyler," written in blue frosting. Jessica, I whispered as she set it down. We discussed a dinosaur cake. This is for a toddler. She waved dismissively. Kids don't care about decorations. They just want sugar. Before I could respond, Tyler ran over, his excitement faltering when he saw the cake. Where are the dinosaurs, Aunt Jessica? This is way cooler than dinosaurs, she assured him. And wait until you see the surprise I brought instead of that boring fossil guy. But the fossil guy is already here, I said, confusion mounting. He's been here for an hour. Jessica's smile tightened. Well, my surprise is better. Everyone gather around. It's present time. I tried to intervene. We haven't done cake yet. And the party schedule has presents after cake. Schedules are for boring people, she interrupted loudly. Mark, set up the projector. Kids, come sit down. I have a special video for the birthday boy. The children obediently gathered on the lawn as Mark connected his laptop to a portable projector aimed at the side of the house. Tyler sat front and center, his face a mixture of confusion and anticipation. "I've been working on this for months," Jessica announced proudly. "A special compilation just for Tyler." The video began playing, and my blood ran ice cold. It was footage of Tyler at various family gatherings, but not just any footage. Jessica had edited together clips that exclusively featured his stutter at its worst. Tyler struggling to tell Grandma about his school project. Tyler trying to order at a restaurant while the waitress grew impatient. Tyler attempting to introduce himself to Dad's business associates. The children began to giggle, then laugh outright. On screen, Tyler's face grew increasingly red and frustrated with each failed attempt to speak smoothly. I lunged for the laptop, but Jessica blocked me. "Wait for the finale," she whispered, a cruel smirk on her face. "It's hilarious." The last clip showed Tyler practicing his birthday party greeting in front of the bathroom mirror, unaware he was being filmed. "Well, welcome to my dinosaur pee party," he repeated over and over, growing more frustrated with each attempt. The children were howling with laughter now. I looked at Tyler and saw the moment something broke inside him. His small body went rigid, his eyes filled with tears, and then he ran. Not a word, not a sound. He just fled into the house as the video continued to play his private struggles for everyone to mock. I ripped the cable from the projector and rounded on Jessica. "What is wrong with you?" I hissed, fury making my voice shake. Jessica looked genuinely surprised by my reaction. "It was just a joke, Alec. Kids need to learn to laugh at themselves. He's 6 years old," I warned. "You just humiliated him in front of everyone." Parents were already gathering their children, shooting uncomfortable glances our way. The dinosaur expert quietly packed up his fossils. The party was effectively over, destroyed in less than 5 minutes. I found Tyler curled in the back of his closet, his dinosaur toys pushed aside. "Go away," he sobbed when I tried to coax him out. "I'm so sorry, buddy," I whispered, my own tears threatening. What Aunt Jessica did was wrong. Everyone was laughing at me, he hiccuped. "I don't want to go back." "You don't have to," I assured him, sitting on the floor outside the closet door. "The party's over." "I never want another birthday party," he declared, breaking my heart all over again. Downstairs, I could hear Jessica laughing with Mark as they helped themselves to cake. When I checked my phone, I found a text Jessica had sent to the family group chat yesterday. Changed all Alec's boring party plans. Going to show Tyler how to laugh at his little speech problem. Should be hilarious. Dad had responded with a thumbs-up emoji. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a misguided attempt at humor. This was deliberate sabotage. The house grew quiet as the last party guests departed, leaving behind half-eaten cake, unopened presents, and the heavy weight of what had just happened. I spent the afternoon with Tyler, who refused to leave his room even after he'd stopped crying. He just lay on his bed, staring at the dinosaur constellations on his ceiling, a profound sadness no 6-year-old should ever experience etched on his face. "Why doesn't Aunt Jessica like me, Dad?" he finally asked in a small voice. The question pierced my heart. "It's not about you, Tyler. Some adults forget what it's like to be a kid. They forget how words and actions can hurt." But she was smiling when everyone laughed at me. I had no good answer for that. How do you explain adult cruelty to a child? Around 6, Grandma Ruth knocked gently on the door with a tray of Tyler's favorite dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets. "Thought our birthday boy might be hungry," she said, her eyes sad but kind. Tyler sat up, but didn't reach for the food. "I don't feel like a birthday boy anymore." Ruth sat beside him on the bed. "What happened today wasn't right, Tyler. But remember something important. How people treat you says more about them than it does about you." She stayed with him while I went downstairs to deal with the party aftermath. To my disgust, I found Jessica, Dad, and Mark in the kitchen, drinking beer and laughing like it was any normal Saturday. "There he is," Jessica called when she spotted me. "Mr. Overreaction himself. Tyler come out of hiding yet?" The casual cruelty in her tone made something snap inside me. "What is wrong with you?" I demanded, keeping my voice low so Tyler wouldn't hear. "You deliberately humiliated a 6-year-old child. Your nephew. On his birthday." Jessica rolled her eyes. "It was just a joke, Alec. Kids are resilient. He'll get over it. You recorded him without permission. You compiled videos specifically to mock his speech impediment. Then you showed it to all his classmates. The video was hilarious. Mark chimed in, earning a glare that made him shrink back against the counter. Dad sighed heavily, setting down his beer. Alec, you're being too sensitive. This is exactly why Tyler has these issues in the first place. You coddle him. His issues started after his mother died, I said through gritted teeth. He's a grieving child, not a punchline. And this is why he'll never improve, Jessica interjected. You use Sarah's death as an excuse for everything. It's been 3 years, Alec. Time to move on and stop using your dead wife as a crutch. The kitchen fell silent. Even Mark looked uncomfortable now. Jessica, that's enough, Dad finally said, though his tone lacked any real reproach. What? It's true, she continued, emboldened by the beer and Dad's weak response. Alec plays the tragic widower card whenever he wants sympathy or handouts, like that check Grandma gave him for this stupid party. And there it was. The real reason behind the sabotage. You ruined Tyler's birthday because you're jealous? Grandma helped me pay for it. The revelation was so petty, so breathtakingly cruel, I almost couldn't process it. Don't be dramatic, Jessica scoffed. But the flicker in her eyes confirmed my suspicion. Grandma gives you money all the time. Meanwhile, I work 60-hour weeks and get nothing. You make 6 times what I do. That's not the point. It's about fairness. I stared at her, this stranger wearing my sister's face. Tyler is going to remember this day for the rest of his life. Every birthday will trigger this memory of public humiliation. And you did it because you're jealous of a teacher's salary and a few $100s for a child's party. Oh, please, she said, reaching for more cake. He won't even remember this next week. I turned to Dad, hoping for some shred of support, but he was studying the label on his beer bottle, deliberately avoiding my gaze. Tyler deserves an apology, I said firmly. From both of you. For what? Dad asked, finally looking up. Teaching the boy to toughen up? The world isn't going to coddle his little speech problem, Alec. Might as well learn that now. I realized then that any hope for empathy or understanding was futile. We're having dinner in an hour, I said, my voice cold. I expect you both to apologize to Tyler. Back upstairs, I found Grandma Ruth sitting alone in the hallway outside Tyler's room. He's finally asleep, she whispered. Poor child, cried himself into exhaustion. I slid down the wall to sit beside her, suddenly exhausted myself. I don't understand them, Grandma. How can they be so cruel? Ruth's weathered hand covered mine. Some people only learn through their own pain, Alec. They can't feel empathy until they experience similar suffering. What do I do? Move out. Tyler and I can't keep living like this. Give it time, she said cryptically. Things have a way of balancing themselves. Dinner was a tense affair. Tyler refused to come down, so Ruth brought a plate up to his room. Jessica spent the meal texting and laughing at her phone, occasionally sharing hilarious reactions to the party video she'd apparently shared with friends. You recorded that? You actually kept that video? I asked in disbelief. Of course, she replied without looking up. Comedy gold. Already got 300 likes. Take it down now. My voice was deadly quiet. Or what? She challenged, finally meeting my gaze. It's my video. I can do what I want with it. Jessica, that's enough, Ruth said, speaking for the first time since sitting down. Remove the video and apologize to your nephew. Stay out of this, Grandma, Dad interjected. Jessica's right. Alec needs to stop overreacting. Overreacting? Ruth's eyebrows rose. A child was publicly humiliated on his birthday. How exactly is Alec overreacting? Boys need to be tough, Dad insisted. Tyler needs to learn to take a joke, like you taught Alec. Ruth's voice took on an edge I rarely heard. By mocking his career choice? By dismissing his grief when Sarah died? Dad flushed. That's different. Is it? Ruth pressed. Or is cruelty simply the language this family speaks now? Jessica slammed her fork down. Great. Now the guilt trip. This is why Alec's such a snowflake. You've always babied him, Grandma. Just like you're babying Tyler. And what about you, Jessica? Ruth asked calmly. Who babies you? Who gives you everything you want without question? Who defends your worst behaviors? Jessica glanced at Dad, then quickly away. I've earned everything I have. Have you? Or have you been protected from consequences your entire life? An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. I think I've lost my appetite, Jessica finally said, standing up. I'm going out. Sit down, Ruth commanded with surprising authority. We're not finished. To my amazement, Jessica hesitated, then slowly sank back into her chair. After dinner, I went to check on Tyler again. He was awake, pushing dinosaur figures around listlessly on his bedspread. "Feeling any better, buddy?" I asked, sitting beside him. He shook his head. "Will everyone at school laugh at me now?" The question broke my heart. "I'm going to talk to your teacher on Monday. What happened wasn't okay, and we're going to make sure everyone knows that." "I wish Mom was here," he whispered. She never laughed at my stutter. "I know, buddy. I wish she was here, too." After tucking him in, I passed Dad's study on my way downstairs and overheard voices. Pausing by the slightly open door, I listened. "We need to discuss your will, Mom," Dad was saying to Ruth. "With your health concerns, it's time to get everything in order." "My will is already in order, Harold," Ruth replied. "Yes, but circumstances change. Alex's emotional instability lately is concerning. Perhaps it would be wiser to create a trust that I oversee rather than direct inheritances." A cold realization washed over me. This wasn't just about a birthday party or a few $100. This was about controlling Grandma Ruth's substantial estate. "I'm perfectly capable of managing my own affairs," Ruth said coldly. "Of course you are, Mom," Jessica's voice chimed in. "Dad's just worried about Alex's judgment, especially with how he's raising Tyler. The boy clearly needs structure and discipline, not coddling." I'd heard enough. Moving away from the door, I felt a new understanding of the day's events. This wasn't random cruelty. This was calculated. Jessica and Dad were trying to drive a wedge between Ruth and me, painting me as emotionally unstable and an unfit parent. Back in my room, I lay awake for hours, wondering how my family had become so twisted. Around midnight, I heard Ruth moving in the hallway. Then her voice, low and intense, on the phone with someone. "Yes, I've made my decision," she was saying. "Some lessons can only be taught through decisive action. And some people only learn when what they value most is threatened." A chill ran down my spine. What was Grandma planning? The sound jolted me awake at 6:17 the next morning. A rhythmic metallic crashing that seemed to be coming from the driveway. At first, I thought I was dreaming, the sound incorporating itself into some fading nightmare. Then Tyler appeared in my doorway, rubbing his eyes. "Dad, what's that noise?" I pulled on sweatpants and hurried to the window, Tyler at my heels. The scene below made me freeze in disbelief. There in the driveway stood my 78-year-old grandmother, still in her nightgown and robe, her white hair wild in the early morning light. In her hands was a baseball bat from the garage, and she was methodically, deliberately smashing it against Dad's prized 1967 Mustang. "Is that Grandma?" Tyler asked, pressing his face to the glass. I couldn't answer, too shocked by the systematic destruction unfolding below. Ruth wasn't frantically bashing the car. She was focused, precise. A swing to the headlight, a solid hit to the side mirror, a direct strike to the pristine red hood, leaving a massive dent in the immaculate finish. The front door banged open, and Dad burst out in his pajamas, face contorted in horror. "Mother, what are you doing? Stop! Stop!" His voice rose to a shriek as Ruth brought the bat down on the windshield, spiderwebbing the glass with a sickening crack. She didn't even pause, moving to the other headlight and smashing it with a single powerful swing. "Grandma's really strong," Tyler whispered, something like awe in his voice. Neighbors began emerging from their homes, drawn by Dad's increasingly frantic shouts. Mr. Peterson from next door actually had his phone out, recording the scene. Mrs. Whitaker across the street stood frozen on her lawn in her bathrobe, mouth agape. Dad grabbed at Ruth's arm, but she shrugged him off with surprising strength, bringing the bat down one final time on the hood ornament. "Mother, have you lost your mind?" Dad was practically sobbing now, running his hands over the destroyed vehicle as if trying to heal it through touch. "Do you have any idea what you've done? This car is worth over $90,000. Ruth calmly placed the bat on the ground and straightened her robe. "I know exactly what I've done, Harold." "Why? Why would you do this?" The anguish in his voice was raw, primal. Ruth's voice carried clearly in the morning air. A lesson in respect. Dad stared at her, uncomprehending. "What are you talking about? What does this have to do with respect?" By now, Jessica had joined the scene, still in yesterday's clothes, suggesting she'd just returned home. Instead of intervening, she immediately pulled out her phone and began taking pictures of the damaged car, circling it like a crime scene photographer. "Oh my God, Dad's going to have a stroke," she said, though she sounded more entertained than concerned. This is insane. Insane. Ruth turned to face her. Was it insane when you humiliated your 6-year-old nephew yesterday? Was it insane when you laughed while he cried? Jessica lowered her phone, finally seeming to grasp the connection. Wait, you did this because of the birthday thing? That was just a joke. This is just a car, Ruth replied evenly. Just a car. Dad spluttered. This is a classic. I spent 2 years restoring it. And Tyler spent 2 years in therapy after losing his mother, only to be mocked by his own family on his birthday, Ruth said, her voice growing steely. Tell me, Harold, which deserves more care? A child's sense of safety and self-worth, or this pile of metal? Dad looked from Ruth to the car and back again, genuine confusion on his face, as if he truly couldn't understand the comparison. You've completely lost it, he finally said. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, Ruth replied with perfect calm. I'll wait right here. I realized I needed to get down there before this escalated further. Stay here, I told Tyler. But he shook his head stubbornly. I want to see Grandma. We hurried downstairs and out the front door, just as more neighbors gathered at the edges of our property, whispering, Alec, talk some sense into your grandmother. Dad called when he spotted me. She's destroyed my car. Before I could respond, Tyler broke away from me and ran straight to Ruth. To my surprise, he wrapped his arms around her waist and looked up at her with something like hero worship in his eyes. Are you okay, Grandma? He asked, not a hint of stutter in his voice. Ruth's stern expression softened as she placed a hand on Tyler's head. I'm just fine, sweetheart. You're going to pay for this. Jessica hissed at Ruth. Do you have any idea how much this car is worth? Do you have any idea how much Tyler is worth? Ruth countered. Because yesterday you treated him as if he had no value at all. It was a joke, Jessica insisted, though she at least had the sense to look uncomfortable now. Was it funny? Did Tyler laugh? Ruth asked. Jessica had no answer for that. Dad was on the phone now, presumably with the police, gesturing wildly at the damaged Mustang as he spoke. The neighbors continued to watch, some with phones recording everything. Mom, this is out of control, I said quietly to Ruth. Let's get you inside. No, she said firmly. It's time we stopped hiding family business behind closed doors. Your father and sister have no problem publicly humiliating Tyler. Let them experience some public consequence of their own. Tyler hadn't left Ruth's side, watching the scene with wide eyes. For the first time since yesterday's disaster, he didn't look crushed by shame. Instead, there was a spark of something like vindication in his expression. You can't possibly compare property damage to a harmless video, Jessica argued, though her voice lacked conviction. Both involve something precious being damaged, Ruth replied. The difference is the car can be repaired with money. A child's sense of safety and trust is much harder to restore. This is ridiculous, Dad said, shoving his phone back in his pocket. The police are on their way. I hope you're prepared to face charges, Mother. I'm 78 years old, Harold. What exactly do you think they'll do to me? There was something in Ruth's tone that made me look at her more closely. A fatalistic calm I'd never heard before. Grandma, I questioned softly. What's going on? Ruth met my gaze steadily. I received my test results back on Friday, Alec. The cancer has returned. It's in my liver, pancreas, and lungs this time. 3 months, they say, perhaps 4 with aggressive treatment, which I've decided to decline. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Why didn't you tell us? I was going to announce it at dinner last night. But then Jessica's little joke took precedence. Her eyes never left Dad and Jessica as she spoke, gauging their reactions. Dad's face went slack with shock. Jessica actually took a step backward, as if the news were something contagious she might catch. You're lying, Jessica accused, though her voice trembled. You're just saying that so we'll feel sorry for you. Ruth smiled sadly. I've never needed your pity, Jessica. But Tyler needed your compassion yesterday, and you had none to give. So now neither do I. The wail of approaching police sirens filled the morning air. Dad looked from the car to Ruth, conflict evident on his face. Cancer, he finally managed, his voice small. Are you sure? Quite sure. Stage 4. Too advanced for effective treatment. But you can't just give up, he protested weakly. There are experimental treatments, clinical trials. I'm not giving up, Harold. I'm choosing how to spend my remaining time. And it won't be in hospital rooms hooked to machines. The police cruiser pulled into the driveway, 2 officers stepping out to survey the scene. They looked from the damaged car to the elderly woman in her bathrobe to the gathered neighbors, clearly trying to make sense of the situation. Someone want to tell me what's going on here? The older officer asked. Dad pointed accusingly at Ruth. My mother vandalized my car. I want to press charges. The younger officer approached Ruth. Ma'am, did you damage this vehicle? I did, Ruth acknowledged without hesitation. It was a deliberate act of property destruction. The officer looked taken aback by her candor. May I ask why? To teach my son a lesson about what truly matters, she said simply. My grandson was cruelly humiliated at his birthday party yesterday by his aunt and father. I wanted them to experience a small fraction of that pain. The officer glanced at Tyler, who had moved to stand between Ruth and me. Is that true, son? About your birthday? Tyler nodded solemnly. They showed a video of me stuttering to everyone. All the kids laughed at me. The officers exchanged a look. The older one turned to Dad. Sir, would you like to step aside and discuss this privately? Dad hesitated, looking from the officers to Ruth to the damaged car. The full weight of the situation seemed to finally hit him. If he pressed charges, his elderly, cancer-stricken mother would be arrested in front of the entire neighborhood. Every detail of the family's dysfunction would become public record. Perhaps we can handle this as a family matter, he said finally, his shoulders sagging in defeat. The younger officer nodded. That might be best, sir. Family disputes can be complicated. As the officers prepared to leave, having determined there was no immediate danger, Ruth turned to face the house. I'll be packing my things now, Harold. Tyler and Alec will help me. What are you talking about? Dad asked, confusion replacing his anger. I'm leaving, she stated simply. I refuse to spend my final months in a home where cruelty is defended and kindness is mocked. Don't be ridiculous, Mother. Where would you go? I have options. Her gaze shifted to me. Alec, would you and Tyler be willing to join me? I think it's time we all had a fresh start. Before I could answer, Jessica let out a derisive laugh. On what? Alec's teacher salary? Good luck with that. Ruth's smile was cold. I have resources, Jessica. Resources that until this moment I had planned to share with all of you equally. Plans change. A heavy silence fell over the driveway as the implication of her words sank in. Dad and Jessica exchanged alarmed glances. Tyler tugged at my hand. Can we go with Grandma, Dad? Please. Looking at my son's pleading face, at Ruth's quiet dignity, then at Dad and Jessica's calculating expressions, I knew there was only one right answer. Yes, buddy. I think it's time we did. We retreated into the house, leaving Dad crouched beside his mangled Mustang in the driveway. The neighbors gradually dispersed, though I knew the story would be circulating through the community before lunchtime. Ruth walked with her head high, one arm around Tyler's shoulders, not a hint of remorse on her face. Jessica followed us inside, her initial shock giving way to calculation. Grandma, you can't be serious about moving out. You're ill. You need family around you. I'm quite serious, Jessica. Ruth replied calmly as we entered the living room. And I will have family around me. The family members who showed genuine care and respect. Dad burst through the front door, his face flushed with a volatile mixture of rage and panic. Mother, this tantrum has gone far enough. You damaged my property to make some misguided point. Fine. Message received. But this talk of moving out is ridiculous. Is it? Ruth settled into her favorite armchair, looking remarkably composed for someone who had just taken a baseball bat to a classic car. I think it's long overdue. You're not thinking clearly, Dad insisted, pacing the room. You're upset about your diagnosis, which is understandable. But making rash decisions now will only. My diagnosis has brought clarity, not confusion, Ruth interrupted. When you know your time is limited, it becomes very easy to distinguish between what matters and what doesn't. Jessica took a different approach, her voice softening as she perched on the arm of Ruth's chair. Grandma, we're all upset about yesterday. What I did was thoughtless, and I'm sorry if it hurt Tyler's feelings. But destroying Dad's car and threatening to leave the family, that's an extreme overreaction. Ruth looked at her steadily. Where is the apology, Jessica? I just said I was sorry. No, you said you were sorry if it hurt Tyler's feelings, which suggests his pain was optional or an overreaction. A real apology acknowledges the hurt caused without qualification. Jessica flushed. Fine. I'm sorry I showed the video. It was mean, but it doesn't justify what you did. I'm not asking for justification, Ruth replied. I'm not the one who needs to forgive you. All eyes turned to Tyler, who stood close to my side, watching the adults with weary attention. Jessica sighed dramatically before kneeling to Tyler's level. Tyler, I'm sorry about the video. I was trying to be funny, but it was mean. Do you forgive me? Tyler looked up at me uncertainly. It's your choice, buddy, I told him quietly. You don't have to decide right now. Tyler turned back to Jessica. Why did you want to make everyone laugh at me? The directness of the question seemed to catch Jessica off guard. I didn't think about it like that. I just thought it was funny. It made me feel bad. Really bad. Like I was stupid. You're not stupid, Jessica said quickly. It was just a joke. A joke is supposed to make everyone laugh, Tyler said softly. I wasn't laughing. Jessica had no response to that. For perhaps the first time in her adult life, she appeared genuinely lost for words. Dad, apparently deciding this emotional terrain was too difficult to navigate, changed tactics. Mother, be reasonable. Where exactly do you plan to go? You need care. You need stability. I've already spoken with a real estate agent, Ruth revealed. There's a lovely garden apartment 3 miles from here. Ground floor, 2 bedrooms with a small patio. The rental agreement is month to month, perfect for my situation. On what income? Dad scoffed. Your pension barely covers your medications. That's not entirely accurate, Ruth said mildly. I have resources you don't know about, Harold. What resources? His eyes narrowed suspiciously. My finances are my business. But rest assured, I can afford to support myself, Alec, and Tyler comfortably. Jessica's head snapped up at this. What finances? Grandpa Joe left everything to you, and you've been living here rent-free for 5 years. Your grandfather was a careful man, Ruth explained. The house and visible assets were transferred to me. Yes, but there were investments and accounts you know nothing about. That's impossible, Dad insisted. I handled all of Dad's paperwork after he died. You handled what he wanted you to handle, Ruth corrected. Joe never trusted your financial judgment, Harold. Not after that disastrous timeshare venture in 2008. Dad's face drained of color. What are you saying? I'm saying your father left provisions that you know nothing about. Provisions I've maintained and grown over the past 5 years. Jessica looked between them, confusion giving way to anger. Are you telling us Grandpa had secret money that should have been part of the family estate? There was no family estate, Jessica. There was your grandfather's estate, which he left to me, his wife, to manage as I saw fit. Ruth's tone remained even, factual. This is absurd. Dad sputtered. If there were additional accounts, I would have found them during probate. Not if they were established decades earlier as separate entities, Ruth explained. Your father was a cautious man. He believed in safeguarding assets from both tax implications and potentially unwise spending habits. The implication hung heavily in the air. Dad had always been the spender in the family. Ruth and Grandpa Joe, the savers. You've been hiding family money from us for 5 years. Jessica's voice rose accusingly. Not hiding. Managing, Ruth corrected, with every intention of sharing it equally among family members who demonstrated responsibility and compassion. And now, Dad asked, a note of dread in his voice. Now I'm reassessing, Ruth said simply. The calculation was naked on both Dad and Jessica's faces. Now their expressions had morphed from anger to alarm. The true stakes of the situation finally becoming clear. You're using your money to punish us, Jessica accused. Because of one stupid joke? No, Jessica. I'm using my money to protect those who need protection. There's a difference. This is manipulation, Dad exclaimed. You're holding your wealth over our heads to control us. Ruth's eyes flashed with a rare display of anger. Is that what you think this is about? Money? Control? Harold, I watched you and Jessica deliberately humiliate a child yesterday. I heard you planning to convince me to change my will last night. Who exactly is being manipulative here? Dad flinched as if struck. You eavesdropped on a private conversation. These old ears still work quite well, Ruth said dryly. And it's fortunate they do, or I might never have known about your plans to have me declared incompetent so you could control my assets. That's not what we said, Jessica protested. No? Then what exactly did you mean by handling Mom's declining judgment and protecting the family interests? Ruth's gaze was unwavering. Jessica looked to Dad for support, but he seemed suddenly fascinated by the pattern in the carpet. Alec's emotional instability is a legitimate concern. Jessica tried again. especially with how he's raising Tyler. The boy clearly needs structure, not coddling. The boy, I finally spoke up, my voice tight with controlled fury, is standing right here listening to you talk about him like he's a problem to be solved. He has a name. He has feelings. And he deserves better than what this family has given him. Tyler pressed closer to my side, and I placed a protective hand on his shoulder. Alec, be reasonable, Dad said, adopting a placating tone. We all want what's best for Tyler. But your approach clearly isn't working. The boy still stutters after 3 years of therapy. Maybe a firmer hand. A firmer hand. I repeated incredulously. You think bullying and humiliation will fix a speech impediment caused by trauma? What's next, Dad? Should we make fun of his nightmares, too? Mock him when he cries for his mother? Don't be dramatic. Jessica cut in. No one's suggesting. You don't get to tell me how to raise my son, I said, my voice low but resolute. Not after yesterday. Not ever again. If you leave this house with Mother, Dad said, his tone shifting to one of warning, don't expect any support from me. No help with Tyler's school tuition. No safety net. I never had one anyway, I replied coldly. You've been holding your financial support over my head for years, making sure I know it's conditional on me living life your way. I'm done with that. You'll be back, Jessica predicted smugly. The first time you can't make rent on your teacher's salary, you'll come crawling back. I'd live in my car before I subjected Tyler to another day of your jokes. Ruth stood up, effectively ending the circular argument. This discussion is pointless. Alec, Tyler, please help me pack my essentials. We'll arrange for the rest later. Mother, please. Dad tried one last time, desperation creeping into his voice. You need to think this through. My cancer treatment will be managed by medical professionals, not family, she finished firmly. My oncologist agrees that quality of life is more important than quantity at this stage. But we're your family, Jessica protested, seeming genuinely confused by Ruth's unwavering resolve. Despite everything, we belong together. Family is more than shared DNA, Jessica, Ruth replied, her voice softening slightly. It's shared respect, shared values, shared care for one another. When those things are missing, you're just relatives living under the same roof. Jessica opened her mouth to argue further, but Ruth raised a hand to silence her. Enough. My decision is made. Perhaps this separation will give all of us time to reflect on what truly matters. As we followed Ruth upstairs to help her pack, I heard Dad hiss to Jessica. This is your fault. If you hadn't shown that stupid video, my fault? Jessica shot back. You're the one who encouraged me. Teach the boy to toughen up. Who said he needs to learn to take a joke? Their accusations faded as we climbed the stairs, but the damage was done. In the space of 24 hours, our family had fractured beyond recognition. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the grief and anger, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: relief. Ruth worked methodically, sorting through 8 decades of possessions with remarkable efficiency. Only pack what matters, she instructed as Tyler and I helped. The rest is just things. Within 2 hours, we had loaded her essential clothing, medications, photo albums, and a few treasured keepsakes into my SUV. Tyler had carefully wrapped her collection of delicate glass birds, treating each one as if it were a priceless treasure. When will we get our stuff, Dad? Tyler asked as we carried the last box downstairs. We'll come back tomorrow while Aunt Jessica is at work, I promised. Just clothes and your important things for now. As we reached the bottom of the stairs, Dad was waiting in the foyer, a manila envelope in his hands. His earlier anger had been replaced with something closer to calculation. Before you make this mistake, Mother, he said, holding out the envelope. There's something you should know. Ruth placed her box on the hall table. What now, Harold? Financial records, he said, tapping the envelope. Your financial records, specifically bank statements, investment reports. I've been monitoring your accounts for the past 5 years. The admission hung in the air for a moment. You've been spying on my finances? Ruth asked, her voice dangerously calm. Managing them? He corrected, using her own word from earlier. Someone needed to make sure you weren't being taken advantage of, especially by those who might manipulate your generosity. His gaze slid meaningfully toward me. That's illegal, I pointed out. Accessing someone else's financial records without permission is identity theft. Dad waved dismissively. She's my mother. I'm looking out for her interests. By stealing from her? Ruth asked. Dad froze. What? Did you think I wouldn't notice, Harold? The monthly withdrawals from my retirement account, the liquidated investments, the equity line of credit taken against my portion of your grandfather's property. I have no idea what you're talking about, Dad insisted. But a flush was creeping up his neck. $60,000 over 3 years, Ruth continued relentlessly. Money that coincidentally matches what you've spent restoring that car I damaged this morning. Jessica appeared in the doorway to the living room, her expression alarmed. What's she talking about, Dad? Nothing, he snapped. Mother's confused. Probably the cancer affecting her mind. My mind is perfectly clear, Ruth countered, reaching into her purse. She withdrew a folder of her own and handed it to Jessica. These are the real financial records, Jessica, not whatever edited versions your father has in that envelope. Jessica opened the folder, her eyes widening as she scanned the contents. Dad, there are dozens of withdrawals here, all with your signature. It was a loan, Dad said quickly. Mother agreed to help with the car restoration. Tell them, Mom. I did no such thing, Ruth replied evenly. You forged my signature on withdrawal authorizations. That's ridiculous. Is it? Shall we call the bank manager? Dennis Griffin has been handling my accounts for 20 years. He's the one who first alerted me to the suspicious activity. Dad's face drained of color. You're making this up to turn Jessica against me. The only person turning anyone against you is you, Harold. Ruth's voice was tired now. Your actions, your choices, your deceptions. Jessica was still flipping through the documents, her expression shifting from disbelief to anger. There's over $60,000 missing. Where did it all go? The car, Ruth repeated. The house renovations last year. The fishing boat he keeps at the lake house that he told you was a business investment. Dad, Jessica looked up, seeking denial. Dad's composure finally cracked. What was I supposed to do? The business has been struggling for years. I needed to maintain appearances. You've been stealing from Grandma? Tyler asked, his small voice cutting through the tension. Dad flinched at the directness of the question coming from his grandson. Adults borrow from each other, Tyler. It's complicated. Borrowing means asking first, Tyler said with the simple logic of a child. And giving it back. When exactly were you planning to repay me, Harold? Ruth asked. Before or after you had me declared incompetent to manage my own finances? Jessica turned on Dad, fury replacing her shock. You said the business was thriving. You said we were expanding into commercial properties. We will be, Dad insisted. Once the Henderson deal closes next month. The Henderson deal fell through in June, Jessica interrupted. I know because I had lunch with Tara Henderson last week. They went with Westlake Developers instead. Dad seemed to physically shrink before our eyes. I was going to tell you. Like you were going to tell Grandma about borrowing her retirement money? Jessica's voice dripped with disgust. What else have you been lying about? Nothing. Everything's under control. I just need a little more time to what? Steal more from a dying woman. The harshness in Jessica's tone suggested a fundamental shift in her perception of our father. Don't be melodramatic, Dad snapped, but the authority had drained from his voice. Mother's been living in my home rent-free for years. I've paid for her health insurance, her food, her medications. I'm entitled to some compensation. Entitled. Ruth repeated the word as if it were foreign to her. To money I earned? To savings your father and I built over 50 years of marriage? To the inheritance I plan to share with all of you. Planned. Jessica seized on the past tense. What do you mean planned? Ruth sighed heavily. After discovering Harold's theft, I made changes. I established a trust for Tyler's education. The remainder will be distributed based on need and character, not equal shares, as I'd originally intended. That's not fair, Jessica protested. Neither is mocking a child's disability, Ruth countered. Neither is stealing from your elderly mother. Life isn't fair, Jessica, but consequences should be. Jessica rounded on Dad. Fix this. Tell her you'll pay everything back. With what? Dad spread his hands helplessly. The business is leveraged to the hilt. The house has 2 mortgages. Even that damn car is financed. The revelation landed like a bomb in the room. The family wealth, the successful business, the luxurious lifestyle. It had all been a carefully maintained illusion. You're broke, Jessica whispered, horror dawning on her face. Cash flow challenged, Dad corrected weakly. Temporarily. For how long? She demanded. 8, maybe 10 years. Jessica staggered back as if physically struck. 10 years. You've been lying about our finances for a decade. I was protecting you from worry, maintaining our standard of living. By stealing from Grandma, by lying to everyone, by making me believe I had a safety net that doesn't exist. Jessica, please, Dad pleaded. Once Mother forgives the loans, they weren't loans, Ruth interrupted firmly. They were theft. And I'm not forgiving anything. Dad's expression hardened. Then I'll contest your will when the time comes. I'll claim you weren't of sound mind when you made these changes. You could try, Ruth acknowledged. But the trust is ironclad. And I've documented your financial misconduct extensively with my attorney. You do this to your own son? Leave me with nothing. You did this to yourself, Harold. Tyler, who had been silent through most of the confrontation, suddenly stepped forward. His small face was set with a determination I'd never seen before. You're mean, he said to Dad, his voice clear and without a hint of stutter. You stole from Grandma. You laughed when I was sad. You're not a nice person. The simple condemnation from a 6-year-old seemed to hit Dad harder than all the adult accusations combined. He stared at Tyler as if seeing him clearly for the first time. Tyler, he began, but seemed unable to find words to continue. We're leaving now, I said firmly, placing a hand on Tyler's shoulder. Jessica, we'll be back tomorrow for our things. Where will you go? She asked, sounding genuinely concerned for the first time. Ruth has arranged temporary accommodations while we look for something permanent, I explained, deliberately vague. What about me? Jessica's voice was small, almost childlike. Where do I go when all this falls apart? It was Ruth who answered, her tone gentler than it had been all morning. That depends on you, Jessica. On the choices you make from this moment forward. On whether you can learn from this experience and become someone different than you've been. Jessica looked from Ruth to Dad to me, then finally to Tyler. Something shifted in her expression. I'm sorry, she said, addressing Tyler directly. Not because I got caught or because I might lose my inheritance. I'm sorry because what I did was cruel and you didn't deserve it. I've been a terrible aunt. Tyler studied her for a long moment, then nodded solemnly. People can change if they really want to. Out of the mouths of babes, the simple wisdom silenced everyone. As we loaded the last of Ruth's things into my car, Dad made one final plea. Mother, please don't do this. We can work something out. Ruth paused before getting into the passenger seat. When you're ready to make genuine amends, Harold, not just to save your inheritance, but because you truly understand the harm you've caused, you know how to reach me. As we pulled away from the house, Tyler waved goodbye to Jessica, who stood alone on the front steps. She raised her hand in return, her expression unreadable from a distance. Will we ever come back, Grandma? Tyler asked as the house disappeared from view. Ruth reached back to squeeze his hand. Some endings are necessary for better beginnings, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean they're forever. I glanced in the rearview mirror at my son, noticing how he sat taller somehow, as if a weight had been lifted from his small shoulders. Whatever happened next, I knew we had made the right choice. 6 months passed in our new life. The garden apartment Ruth had arranged became a sanctuary of calm after the toxic environment of Dad's house. Tyler's bedroom overlooked a small pond where ducks gathered each morning, and he named each one, keeping a detailed journal of their habits and behaviors. His dinosaur collection found a place of honor on specially installed shelves, no longer hidden away in a room he was afraid to leave. Most surprising was the change in Tyler himself. The stutter that had plagued him since Sarah's death began to fade within weeks of our move. His therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Rivera, attributed it to reduced anxiety and a more supportive environment. Children are remarkably resilient when they feel safe, she explained during one of our sessions. Tyler's speech issues were exacerbated by the constant stress in your previous home. Remove the stress, and often the symptoms improve naturally. Ruth's health declined as expected, but she faced her illness with characteristic dignity. She declined aggressive treatments in favor of comfort care, determined to make her remaining time meaningful rather than merely longer. Quality over quantity, she would say whenever I expressed concern about her decision. I've had a good life, Alec. 78 years is nothing to sneeze at. We established new routines. Morning coffee on the patio while Tyler explained the latest dinosaur fact he'd learned. Afternoon reads in the living room. Ruth in her favorite chair while Tyler and I sprawled on the floor with books. Evening meals where we each shared the best part of our day. A tradition Sarah had started that felt right to resurrect. The school year progressed, and Tyler thrived in ways I hadn't thought possible. His teacher reported he was participating more in class, had made several friends, and showed particular aptitude for science. The video incident faded from his classmates' memories, replaced by Tyler's newfound confidence and enthusiasm. Then, 4 months after our departure, a text message from Dad appeared on my phone. "Can we meet? Just us." I showed it to Ruth, who nodded encouragingly. "Hear him out. People can surprise you." We arranged to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Neutral territory for what would inevitably be a difficult conversation. I arrived early, selecting a corner table that offered some privacy without feeling isolated. Dad looked older when he walked in, the past months having etched new lines around his eyes and mouth. Gone was the designer suit and Italian leather briefcase, replaced by casual clothes that seemed to hang slightly on his frame. He spotted me and hesitated before approaching, as if uncertain of his welcome. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. "How's Tyler and Mother?" "They're doing well," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. "Tyler's stutter has improved significantly. Ruth is comfortable, all things considered." Dad nodded, fingers fidgeting with a paper napkin. "I've been seeing a therapist," he said abruptly. "First time in my life. Never thought I needed it before." This unexpected revelation caught me off guard. "That's good. It's hard," he admitted, "looking at yourself honestly, seeing patterns you've spent decades justifying." I remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "I was wrong, Alec." The words seemed physically painful for him to speak. "About Tyler, about you, about how I've treated both of you. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." "Why now?" I asked, needing to understand if this was genuine or simply another manipulation. Dad sighed heavily. "Jessica moved out last month. Got her own place. Said she couldn't keep living with the lies." He rubbed his face wearily. "The business is officially in Chapter 11. The house is in foreclosure. I'm staying in a studio apartment above Wilson's Hardware downtown." I felt a complex mixture of emotions, satisfaction that consequences had finally arrived, but also a strange sadness for the man before me. "I'm sorry about the business," I said, meaning it. Despite everything, it had been his life's work. "Don't be. It's been failing for years." I just couldn't admit it. He met my gaze directly. "Pride is expensive, Alec. I'm learning that the hard way." We sat in silence for a moment, the ambient noise of the coffee shop filling the space between us. "Jessica told me the video went viral," Dad finally said. "The one she made of Tyler." My hands clenched involuntarily. "What?" "Not because she shared it intentionally," he clarified quickly. "One of the parents at the party posted it. It got picked up by one of those family fails accounts. Jessica lost 3 corporate clients when they recognized her voice mocking a child with a disability. I hadn't known this, but it explained her abrupt career troubles. Actions have consequences, I said, echoing Ruth's words from months earlier. Yes, they do. Dad took a deep breath. I'd like to see Tyler if that's possible. Not at your place, neutral ground like this, supervised, of course. I understand if you say no. The request was so different from the entitled demands of the past that I found myself considering it seriously. I'll need to talk to Tyler first and his therapist. If he's comfortable with it, we can arrange something. Relief flooded Dad's face. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. It's not about what you deserve, I clarified. It's about what's best for Tyler. Dad nodded soberly. As it should be. Before leaving, he handed me an envelope. For Mother. It's not much, just the first payment. I've taken a job managing Wilson's store. The pay is nothing like what I'm used to, but it's honest work. I opened the envelope to find a check for $500 and a handwritten note. You don't need to deliver this now, Dad said quickly. Just whenever it feels right. 2 weeks later, after careful consultation with Dr. Rivera and multiple conversations with Tyler, we agreed to a short meeting at a local park. Tyler was understandably nervous, but also curious. Has Grandpa changed? He asked as we drove to the meeting spot. I think he's trying to, I answered honestly. People can change if they really want to, remember. Dad was waiting by the playground, a small gift bag in his hands. He'd lost more weight, but his eyes were clearer than I'd seen them in years. Thank you for coming, he said, addressing Tyler directly rather than speaking through me. I've missed you. Tyler nodded, but stayed close to my side. I brought you something, Dad continued, holding out the bag. It's not much, but I thought you might like it. Tyler looked to me for permission. When I nodded, he cautiously accepted the gift. Inside was a small, perfectly preserved fossil of a fern, professionally mounted in a simple frame. It's 300 million years old, Dad explained. From the Carboniferous period. I remembered you saying the dinosaurs came later, but I thought you might appreciate seeing what the world looked like before they arrived. Tyler's eyes widened as he carefully traced the delicate impression left by the ancient plant. This is real. 100% authentic, Dad confirmed. The museum downtown has a shop where they sell smaller specimens. I asked the paleontologist there to help me choose something scientifically accurate. The thoughtfulness of the gift, not just a generic toy, but something that showed genuine attention to Tyler's specific interests, surprised me. This wasn't the empty gesture I'd expected. Thank you, Tyler said softly. It's really cool. I'm sorry, Tyler, Dad said, kneeling to meet him at eye level. For laughing when Aunt Jessica showed that video, for not protecting you like a grandfather should, and for all the times before that when I wasn't kind or patient with your stutter. Tyler studied him seriously. Did you really? Steal from Grandma? Dad flinched at the directness, but nodded. Yes, I did, and that was very wrong. Are you going to give the money back? I'm trying to, Dad admitted. It will take a long time, but I'm paying a little each month now. Tyler considered this. Grandma says making mistakes isn't the worst thing. Not fixing them is. Your grandma is a very wise woman, Dad agreed. The visit lasted only 30 minutes, but it ended on a civil note. As we prepared to leave, Dad asked, "How is Mother doing?" Really? I hesitated before answering truthfully. The doctors say it could be any time now. Weeks, maybe days. Pain flashed across his face. Would she? Do you think she would see me? Again, I was struck by the difference in his demeanor. The old Harold would have demanded access as his right. This version asked permission, prepared for rejection. I'll ask her, I promised. Ruth agreed to the visit, unsurprised by the request. I've been expecting him, she said serenely. Took him long enough. 3 days later, Dad arrived at our apartment, clearly nervous, but determined. He brought no gifts, made no grand gestures, simply sat beside Ruth's bed and held her hand. I'm sorry, Mom, he said, his voice cracking. For everything. I know, Harold, she replied gently. I forgive you. They spoke privately for over an hour. When I checked on them, I found Dad reading aloud from Ruth's favorite book of poetry, his voice soft and steady, her eyes closed in peaceful listening. That visit became the first of many over the following weeks. Dad never stayed long, never imposed, but his presence seemed to bring Ruth comfort. Jessica came too, tentatively at first, then with increasing regularity. Her transformation was less dramatic than Dad's, but no less significant. She'd taken a job at a nonprofit helping disadvantaged children access educational resources. It pays practically nothing, she admitted during one visit. But it matters. I'm learning what that feels like. When Ruth passed away 2 weeks after Tyler's 7th birthday, it was peaceful. We were all there. Tyler, me, Dad, and Jessica gathered around her bed as she took her final breaths. Her last words were, "Remember what matters." The funeral was simple but well attended. To my surprise, many of our former neighbors came, offering condolences and support. Mrs. Whitaker, who had witnessed Ruth's baseball bat moment, hugged me tightly. Your grandmother was a fierce protector, she whispered. We should all be so lucky to have someone love us that completely. In the months that followed, our family continued its cautious reconstruction. Dad found unexpected satisfaction in his hardware store job, developing genuine relationships with customers and employees alike. Jessica volunteered to help coach Tyler's science club, discovering a talent for explaining complex concepts to children. On the anniversary of that disastrous birthday party, we faced a difficult decision. Tyler wanted a small celebration with his new friends, but the memory of the previous year's trauma lingered. Are you sure, buddy? I asked as we discussed options. We could do something different this year. A trip to the Natural History Museum, maybe? Tyler shook his head decisively. I want a real party, a happy one. So, we planned a modest gathering at our apartment. Just 5 friends from school, dinosaur decorations again, and a cake I ordered myself from the local bakery. The day before the party, Jessica called. I know I'm probably the last person you want there, but I'd like to come, if Tyler's okay with it. I consulted with Tyler, who considered the request solemnly before nodding. She's trying to be better, right? I think so, buddy. Then she should come. The surprise came the morning of the party when Dad arrived with Jessica carrying a large, carefully wrapped package. "Special delivery for the birthday boy," he announced, setting it on the coffee table. "From Grandma Ruth." Tyler and I exchanged confused glances. "Grandma's in heaven," Tyler said carefully, as if concerned Dad might have forgotten. "She arranged this before she left us," Dad explained. "Made me promise to wait until today." Inside the box was a complete junior paleontologist field kit, professional quality tools, reference books, and a letter in Ruth's distinctive handwriting. I read it aloud as Tyler examined his gift. "Dear Tyler, by the time you receive this, I'll be gone, but not really. The love we share doesn't disappear. It transforms. Just like the ancient creatures you admire left their mark on the world, this birthday marks a new beginning. Last year taught us all difficult lessons about respect, courage, and standing up for what's right. You were the bravest of us all. Remember that. Families, like fossils, tell a story of what once was. But unlike fossils, families can change, grow, and heal. Some bones break, but mend stronger at the fracture point. I've left something else for you, too. A future. Your college fund is secure, no matter what happens. Learn everything you can. Ask endless questions, and always remain curious about the world and compassionate toward those in it. I love you, my little paleontologist. That never changes, Grandma Ruth." There wasn't a dry eye in the room when I finished reading. "She planned this months ago," Dad explained, his voice thick with emotion. "Made me swear I wouldn't tell anyone until today." The party that followed was everything the previous year's event should have been. Joyful, supportive, centered on Tyler's happiness rather than adult agendas. Jessica helped serve cake. Dad told terrible dinosaur jokes that made the children groan, and Tyler didn't stutter once as he excitedly showed his friends his new paleontologist tools. As the celebration wound down and the last friend departed, Tyler surprised us all by gathering the 3 adults in the living room. "I have something to say," he announced with newfound confidence. We sat obediently, curious about what was coming. "Last year was the worst birthday ever," he began matter-of-factly. "But today was the best one, and it's because everyone decided to be different." His simple observation captured the essence of our family's transformation. "Grandma told me that sometimes you have to break something to fix it," Tyler continued. "Like when you reset a bone that's healing wrong. It hurts a lot at first, but then it gets better." Jessica wiped tears from her cheeks. "Your grandma was very wise." "She still is," Tyler corrected. "Just because we can't see her doesn't mean she's not helping us." Out of the mouths of babes, indeed. Later that night, after Tyler was asleep and Dad and Jessica had gone home, I sat on our small patio looking at the stars. The past year had brought pain I never expected, but also healing I hadn't thought possible. Ruth's dramatic action with the baseball bat had shattered more than a windshield. It had broken through years of toxic family patterns, creating space for something healthier to grow. We weren't perfect. Dad still had moments of tone-deaf entitlement. Jessica occasionally slipped into her old sarcastic habits. I sometimes struggled with trusting their transformations were genuine and lasting. But we were trying, all of us, and that effort mattered. In the end, Ruth had taught us her most important lesson. Respect cannot be demanded, but must be earned, and sometimes necessary endings lead to healthier beginnings. The family that emerged from the rubble of that disastrous birthday was fundamentally different from the one that entered it. Smaller in some ways, but stronger where it counted, more authentic, more compassionate. And Tyler, at the center of it all, flourished in the space that honesty created, his voice growing stronger with each passing day. What did you think of this story? Have you ever witnessed a moment where someone had to take dramatic action to break a harmful family pattern? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content, and share it with someone who might need to hear that sometimes necessary endings lead to better beginnings. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect is earned, not demanded. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.